All right, welcome back everybody. In this video, we're going to talk about the experience chunks of a resume. So we've already talked about the general format. You've got your header with all your contact information. You've got that objectives section or summary section at the very beginning. And then the next important thing is to really figure out how to present your experience. Now, if you don't have a whole lot of experience and you're worried about that, your resume is going to look pretty blank. We'll get to that a little bit later in this video. So to start with, there are a couple specifics that I want you to keep in mind when we're listing experience. The experience chunks are really brief. We're focused on where you were employed, so what the business was, the geographic location, so the city and state or province, so that somebody can see, oh, you worked in different parts of the country or you've only worked in Seattle. That's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just worth noting. Your role or your job, so think of this as your job title, the dates that you were employed, so that's generally month and year. Now, you can include a day if you want, but generally employers are really only interested in month and year. Year alone is a little bit tricky. Usually they want more information than that. Just make sure that they're accurate. And then underneath that is probably what's most important, what the hiring managers are going to be looking at. And those are your accomplishments. What did you accomplish at that job? And I say it's an accomplishment rather than a task because a task is simply something that everybody with that job did. So to go back to previous examples, if I was a server at a restaurant and I said I waited on tables, that would be relatively obvious because that's part of the job. Again, what I want to say is my accomplishment. I regularly served a 10-table section with a high degree of customer satisfaction, something like that. So as we go into this, we're going to look at two examples just to begin. So here's the first example, and these two examples are from different places, and that's to demonstrate different sort of organizations, different ways to structure the experience listing. So in this one, again, if we imagine we're a hiring manager, we can see this person worked at the swim club, and that was located in Anywhere, Pennsylvania. Their job was assistant manager / head lifeguard. So they had a leadership position. That's always a good thing. And they worked there from the summers of some year to the summers of a different year. Now, again, as I mentioned before, you want to do months. But if it was a recurring seasonal thing every summer from 2020 to 2023, it's okay to do it this way because the hiring person is going to know, oh, you only work summers. You didn't work winter, fall, and spring. Underneath that is the thing that I think a lot of people get wrong because where you worked, when you worked there, your position, that's all kind of factual. But a lot of people struggle with the description that follows the experience. Couple things. A lot of people will type full sentences or they'll type a paragraph or they'll include things that are obvious or irrelevant. And here what we want to do is focus really, again, on those accomplishments rather than the tasks. So this person has 4 bullet points, and bullet points are a great way to go. And if we look at each bullet point and just look at the first word of each bullet point, we see they have ensured, supervised, developed, and assisted. So we have verbs. They begin with the action rather than a pronoun like I ensured. That just makes things more efficient. It's fewer words. It's more direct. If you say ensured safety of patrons and guests, they know what you're basically saying is I ensured safety of patrons and guests. So just know that that is perfectly fine in this case. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and move on to the next one, which is just a different listing, right? This one is from Resume Genius. The previous one was from drexel.edu. And again, we see a slightly different format. In this case, they have their job title up at the top. So they're a cashier. Fair enough. Where did they work? They worked at Whole Foods. And geographically, that is in Raleigh, North Carolina. that works. Now, short aside, I would go ahead and write out North Carolina, but that's a stylistic, idiosyncratic thing on my part. Now here they say 2018 to 2020, so we have that time range. However, because there's got to be a however, right? I would include the months so that they know, was it 2 years or was it more like, 14 months? What was that time frame? But underneath, this looks pretty good to me as well, right? If we're a hiring manager, we've got 4 bullet points, and each one starts with a verb. So provided, adhered, trained, and performed. And these are accomplishments. They're not just simply tasks. Things are quantified. They provided efficient and friendly service to 100 plus customers on a daily basis. It's a lot of interpersonal reaction. Jumping down to the 3rd bullet point, they trained 10 plus new cashiers, ensuring they followed established health, sanitation, and safe work practices. So this person had some responsibility, and Whole Foods trusted them to train new employees. So that shows a little bit of an accomplishment as well. Somebody trusted them to do those things. So either one of these is a pretty good format, and I would say sticking to 3 to 5 bullet points is the sweet spot. Put in what you have, but try not to go over 4 or 5, because then it looks like you're trying to list absolutely everything. If you want to expand on things, you can always do that later on in the cover letter, which we'll talk about in the next couple modules. So reminders, right? For your descriptions should be bullet points. They should be short and concise. They should be achievements rather than tasks. And you should avoid using the first person pronoun and prepositions. That's just to kind of clean everything up and make it super easy for somebody to read. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at some examples. So I put together about 5 different examples of a bullet point entry. Now, as I bring them up on the screen, I want you simply to think if you would consider it a good bullet point or a bad bullet point for a job listing. So here's the first one: worked with clients. Now, what's good or bad about this? Well, it does say they work with clients, so that's okay, but it's bad because it really lacks specificity and accomplishments. We don't know in what capacity this person worked with clients, and we don't know how many clients they worked with. So worked with could mean anything from opening a door to answering a phone to negotiating a contract. And clients could be anything from a person walking up to a lemonade stand to a client in a legal discussion, right? So whatever it is, this needs to be a lot more specific, focused on accomplishments. Now this one, I talk to clients on a daily basis. Better. Still not good, because as with the one above, we don't know what they talked about. We don't know how many clients. Baristas at coffee shops talk to a lot of clients on a daily basis. That, not to disparage it, but that is different from somebody who is doing a lot more in-depth, longer-term discussions like contract negotiations or something like that. Responsible for client list of 40 high-profile businesses. This one, much better, right? Pretty good. We have this responsibility part. We have 40 clients, a list of 40 clients, and we have that high-profile business part. So we know that this person was trusted with some high-profile accounts. The next one, supported 40 different clients at industry-leading businesses. Also pretty good. Again, we have the 40 in there, so we know how many. And we know that these are industry-leading businesses, which is helpful. Now, supported and responsible are okay. Managed, some other verb like that might help too. And then the last one here, 40 clients. Obviously, we don't know. Again, 40 clients, what? What did we do with them? Again, if you start with that verb, supported, managed, trained, something like that would help here. All right, let's cruise on forward. So let's talk about some additional notes in this case. List your experience in reverse chronological order. What that means is start with your most recent experience at the top and then move backwards. use month and year. And if you are still working that job, you just simply say until present. Stay consistent in your date format. So if you're using month and year, don't switch to day, month, and year or something like that further down the line. Use bullet points for your accomplishments, as I mentioned before, and stick to 3 or 5. And don't add any filler, so don't feel like you need to come up with 5. Come up with what you can. Avoid pronouns and prepositions. Keep it short. And then remember to tailor that resume for the job you're applying for. And in your explanations, you can include keywords from the job description to show that connection. All right. So as promised, if you do not have a whole lot of experience in a field, or you have very limited experience and your resume is looking a little meager, there are a couple ways that you can kind of fill in that space without resorting to making stuff up or embellishing or whatnot. So one thing to do is to include things like your education. And what I mean there is really expanding. So instead of just saying graduated from X high school, you could include specific classes you took. Graduate of X high school, took AP classes, took honors classes, graduated with such and such GPA. If you don't have that, you could focus on clubs, sports, or extracurricular activities. And again, that's a place where you could highlight things like leadership experience. President of the chess club, captain of the baseball team, right? Member of the drama club, whatever that is, which will help the hiring manager understand what you're doing with your time outside of school and the other jobs that you may have. Now, caveat on that. Unless you were part of a competitive gaming group and you did it at some level of high competition, I probably wouldn't include that here. If you can solve a Rubik's Cube in 30 seconds, that's great, but I probably wouldn't include it here. You might also include volunteer experience. Did you volunteer somewhere? How have you spent your time? And then the last one, which I think is the best one to focus on, is using soft skills. So focusing on soft skills. Now, what's the difference between a hard skill and a soft skill? Well, I'm glad you asked. So here's a graph or a little explanation, and then we'll look at a graphic. Hard skills are job-related competencies and abilities that are necessary to complete your work, where soft skills are personal qualities and traits that impact how you work. Hard skills are often applicable to a certain career. Soft skills are transferable to any type of job. That's from Walden University. So if you are applying for a sales position and you don't have any sales experience, but you have a lot of experience working with different people, that might apply. That's a soft skill. So soft skills that you can see on the right-hand column, they're things like communication, flexibility, leadership, teamwork, and time management. Those things are really helpful to understand. If we go back to the education, clubs, sports, and grades sort of thing, if you are a high school student who had a 3.4 GPA, but you were also active in sports, you played 3 sports, and you're a member of a club, that shows a lot of time management skills. So focus on those soft skills. And then, a lot of these things like typing speed or computer programming, they can help you develop along the way. In fact, a lot of evidence points to the fact that employers are looking for people with the soft skills because they can train or teach the hard skills. Okay, so some final notes and suggestions real quick here. One thing is kind of nitty gritty, maybe obvious again, but format, structure, what it looks like. I found these all on the internet. I don't know if they're real. I don't know if somebody made them up, but we have like the My Little Pony one here on the left. Even if you're applying to work at, I don't know, somewhere that sells kids' toys, this is a little bit too informal. It's not really showing a whole lot of professionalism. Somebody could say, well, it's fun. Yeah, but it's really distracting, right? The one over here on the right is similar. There's a lot going on here, just visually. And I don't even know where to begin. And so a hiring manager with either of these two is probably just going to pass. They're not even going to bother to read it. So even if these people are highly qualified, probably not going to get through. Also, those applicant tracking systems, they have a hard time with graphics. So if you have too many graphics, it might bounce your email or your resume, even if you have the experience. Now, the one in the middle here, and you could pause it and look at it, but even just visually, there's a lot going on here, and it's kind of out of order. We can see that it's all center aligned. I would advise against that. Again, use one of those templates if you want to, something like from Google Docs, just to get started, and then you can always change it as you go. All right, I know this video is getting long, but we're almost there. Final tips, last slide. Use a regular font, so Times New Roman, Calibri, or Georgia. Use 12-point font for the body of the text. You can use a slightly larger size, up to maybe 30-point for your name at the top, and just to help yourself stand out. Avoid using graphics and images, like I said before. Use color very, very sparingly. If you're going to use color, stick with something that is a darker or more neutral color. So not, bright pink, not, a garish yellow color, right? Stick to something fairly neutral. Make it easy to read. And that is both in terms of your grammar and sentence structure, but also in terms of visual aesthetic organization on the page. And then, of course, check for grammar, spelling, and mechanics. This is probably the first document that the hiring manager is going to see. And so you want to make sure that document, your resume, is solid and there are no spelling mistakes. All right, so there you go. Sorry this one was a little bit longer. If you have questions, comments, concerns, jokes, memes, or recipes, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll talk to you all later.